See, I suppose one of the things that might be levelled at shamanism and kind of New Ageism is that it can be a bit traditionalist, a bit rootless, a bit like it's being made up on the spot. Whereas I suppose like a monotheistic faiths, for all of their evident social, cultural problems, have a clear, ritualized, ceremonial way of dealing with the challenge of the flesh, or at least domination by the flesh, domination by primal desires. I recognize that, there's no point giving up social media. Give up the person that needs social media. Give up you. Give up the self. No point giving up alcohol. Give up the person that needs alcohol. Give up the thing, the point of attachment. You give up, as you say, the parasympathetic nervous system. I don't know enough about neurology or anatomy to know whether that's the exact way, but I obviously take your word for it. But what I require additionally in order to do that is clear, ritualized behavior. That's why I like couching my own recovery, and I have no bloody choice, but I also like couching my recovery in a 12-step process, because I think, all right, how do I map what I know about drugs and alcohol onto tech? Right, I acknowledge it's a problem. I believe it's possible to change it. I recognize I'm going to have to accept help and access an aspect of my own awareness that's currently dormant or inaccessible, at least. I'm going to probably need to inventory this behavior so I get a better understanding of it. I'm going to have to share it with another person, identify the problems and what it is I'm trying to conceal or medicate through this. And have I harmed anybody? Stay aware, etc. You know what the 12-step program is. But I do need ritual. I do need a kind of, you're only going to be looking at your phone for 1 hour. You're not going on those social media sites. Now, of course, I think these kind of programs are beautiful because they are amorphous and there's as many ways of working them as there are addicts or whatever. But do you not have concerns about an unstructured and intuitive approach to recovery and the limitations that places on the replication of these, i.e. if there ain't a technique, how are we going to get other people to do it?
I do believe that we didn't accidentally get born into this era. And if you and I were born 500 years ago, or if we were born 1,000 years ago, we would be dealing with very different social dilemmas. There wasn't anyone making documentaries 1,000 years ago, but I guarantee that the problems were thick, with people being scalped in the street and women being raped on the sidewalk and the plague or whatever was going on at that time. And I just think a lot of times that when we look at it as though, this is dangerous. Yeah, it's really dangerous. Social media is dangerous. Robots are dangerous. All these things are super dangerous. But we have the capacity to find enlightenment underneath any circumstances. And enlightenment, what I love about enlightenment, and I'll say something about fourth way here, because, I'm a teacher of this thing called fourth way. And that's what my book is all about. And fourth way is supposed to be, or what it is enlightenment in the real world. So Marcus Aurelius is an example. Abraham Lincoln is an example. Rumi is an example.
Like both the first two examples I would sort of associate with kind of, certainly Marcus Aurelius, Stoicism. Abraham Lincoln seems at least kind of stoic, although I don't know what his deal was. Rumi, I understand, of course, is a Sufi, and it seems like a sort of a more mystical and somewhat more abstract theological undergirding than the first two. This fourth way, I heard it in relation with like Ouspensky and I don't know, isn't it sort of some sort of Russian shamanism thing? What the hell is it, Biet?
Well, I mean, I could, in a nutshell, my book really dials it down and makes it super simple for people, because I've been studying it with my father my whole life, and that's my life's work. But in a nutshell, really simply, fourth way work is dividing your attention so that you live both in the space of the soul and in the space of life creation and achievement simultaneously, and you no longer make one more important than the other. So that means that to Marcus Aurelius wasn't just a philosophical thinker. He was an emperor. Abraham Lincoln wasn't, like, you know what I mean? Abraham Lincoln wasn't,
Pressure.
yeah, he was an emperor. Like, so being an emperor requires quite a bit of kabuki. You put on the suit, you go out, there's a parade, you're being photographed. I mean, maybe not then photographed, and you're a celebrity. Like, there's a lot of roles in this world that when you take them on have a payment. There's a thing called the law of payment. And the way the book works is that the way Fourth Way works is that it says that we're actually underneath 48 laws on a very normal day. So you wake up and you're in 48 different types of prisons, basically. Like you said, I don't want to find enlightenment in a prison. I'd rather find it on a private jet. Fourth Way is saying, baby, you in a prison when you're on that jet. And so if you can get with that, if you can understand that your life is the fleeing of that prison at all times and make that your motive, then you don't need to give up worldly possessions. You don't need to give up shopping at Barney's. You don't need to give up the glitz and the glamour and the razzle dazzle of life, as long as you're not identified with it. And that's covered in what's called the law of identification, which is a Fourth Way term.
The law of identification. The law of identification. But I do want to look. I have an issue with I know you to a point, and I feel like you're great, and I'm sure your book "Don't Just Sit There" is great also. But like, this is my concern, Biet. What about I don't like the idea of training people just to be better capitalists. And training people like, this is how you can succeed within this system. Meditate in order that you can, even though, look, I got a foot in each camp still. Of course I have. I'm dogged by it, I'm dogged by it. It's getting easier. It's getting better. But like, I, as you say, the kabuki of putting on the suit, putting on the mask, living in that world, going into that space, but that, whilst I still don't feel fully held enough to let go of it absolutely, I feel more connected than ever before to something that I don't feel like I had conscious access to in the previous incarnations of my addiction. And my intention is to be free. Now, I reckon I recognise there's a degree of imprisonment. I'm going to require oxygen. I'm going to be living in this body. I've got all sorts of obligations, some of which are terrific. But like, do you not feel concerned that we accept the limitations of a system that is a kind of an invisible, economic ideology that we're sort of forced to live within? And even when we're talking about spirituality, we're saying spirituality within these confines.
I don't think it's a hindrance anymore. I see it as a privilege to be able to be on a planet where everything is very fucked up. And I think it's a privilege to be on a planet where everything is upside down. And Fourth Way actually says, if you're living in a world that is upside down, but you become right side up inside of it, the effect that you have on people is it's resonant. There's a resonance, there's a sound that occurs when we attune ourselves. Now, am I upset about what's happening in America and the political system right now? Like, do I cry about it in my meditations? Yes. But that's not to say that if I'm not present to both sides of myself, both the enlightened bliss Christ consciousness side of myself and also the raw pissed off American who's like, you've got to be kidding me if this is what you think is a good idea for our country right now. If those two can't coexist, then I'm not going to be able to be effective. And everyone's effective in a different way. Some people are effective politically. Some people are effective artistically. Some people are effective through laughter, right? So everyone has their own note that they're playing on this planet. But I don't believe when I hear you say, that one day you'll need to let it all go so that you can finally be free. I love all of you. Like, I don't think there's anything to let go of. It's just all so great. And the body and the finality and the pain and the kabuki, all of it. And I find that the more I embrace all of it and am in lust with all of it rather than being selective. I think that's really a big transformation, is the selectiveness, like enlightenment versus material gains. It's like, how are those things separate? Only by the mind are they separated.
Well, I suppose when I think of it, though, say Osho, you know, who was a pretty smart and amazing dude and wrote and came up with some fantastic stuff, doesn't have the same resonance to me as Gandhi, who, by all accounts, was not a man without flaws. But, like, I feel like, you know, like, that what I dig about Gandhi is that he went for, yeah, fuck it. I'm going to just wear a blanket and tend to the goats and see where this ends up. And I'm pretty certain that it's going to be with a bullet, you know. Whereas like Osho, yeah, no problem having a Rolex wrapped around me, no problem untold Rolls Royces. Even though I'd like, you know, I've got read stuff of his that's like, wow, this dude knows the score, man. You know, like there's something, I don't know if in me as a former hedonist I have this kind of puritanism, like now the kind of puritanism of the ex-addict and the kind of, well, we shouldn't be doing that, and that's a bit saucy, like, you know, like I don't know if I have that or what, but like I like what you're saying. I just feel like I've been burned by that fire so much yet that I don't think I'm ever going to be at ease with because every time I open the door a little bit, you know, like it's chaos happens.